Watch me playing on my DS. Woo! You ain't got no time for BS. Woo! Everybody looking distressed. Woo! Cause they got none of my business. Hey! It's dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb rhymings from your boy, the insane game freak. Now, in the lieu of all this Nintendo drama, I thought the one thing I should probably go back to doing is talking about some games, damn it. And the problem is that I do a lot of that on Juices Loose, so a lot of my extra stuff and like spillover stuff come out in the form of those rant videos and other videos in that nature. But I wanted to talk about some first impressions. And I know this video won't get as many views purely for that reason. But I want to talk about Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valencia. I don't think I've done like an actual first impressions on this game. And I've had it for a little bit over a month. Because it came out May 19th and it's like almost June 30th. So I've had it for about a month. I haven't beaten it yet. I'm on chapter 4. The reason why I haven't been beating it yet is because I've been playing other games. I just recently picked it back up again because I was playing Persona 5. And then ARMS came out and I've been playing that. I already have about 20 hours in ARMS. And ARMS has only been out for 2 weeks. Luckily, ARMS is a fighting game, so like I can play that at my own pace. It's besides the fucking point. No one wants all this preamble bullshit. Let's talk about Fire Emblem Echoes. So, if you're like me, you primarily have been playing the 3DS titles, so that's what I'm going to relate this to. I'm not going to relate this to the other Fire Emblem games because I haven't played them. Primarily the 3DS titles. I've played all 3 Passive Fates. I've played all of Awakening. I've actually played Awakening, I think, twice. Yeah, I beat Awakening twice, and then I started a new playthrough for Fates. But Fate, at that point, I was pretty burnt out on Fire Emblem, and then on top of that, played Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Been playing Fire Emblem Heroes pretty consistently, and then on top of all that, we got what? Fire Emblem Warriors later on this year, and we got Fire Emblem Switch in the near future. Like, at this point in time, Fire Emblem has started to become kind of in that Pokemon syndrome, where it's starting to burn me the fuck out, which is probably the reason why it's taking me so long to get through Echoes. But I will want to talk about some of my impressions of the game and a few things I noticed. Okay, so first things first. I remembers when Fates came out, one of the things people kept saying about Fates was like, holy shit, the hit rate doesn't really mean as much, isn't as easy as it was in Awakening. Awakening, literally, you were going to hit 90% of the time. Like, you rarely saw people missing in Awakening because the shit barely fucking happened. Especially with all the parrot mechanic and the dual strikes. You just never saw it. Fates, I think, hit that balance of, okay, it's not like easy as shit to hit everything now, but it's not like offensively annoying where I'm missing like half of my 80% shots. I will easily say Echoes is that game, though. Echoes is that game where you were going to be missing, like, I would say you miss more than you hit sometimes. Like, if it literally, like, I would say Fates was around the 60-70% of hits, and then, like, 30% not hits, whereas Awakening was, like, 90% hit, 10% miss. And then, like, Echoes is literally, it almost feels like 50-50 sometimes. I think it's a little bit generous. I think it's probably, like, 60-40. But it's still pretty fucking low for your general hit rates in fights. You are most of the time going to miss some really stupidly easy hit. Like, there's nothing in this game that makes me feel comfortable while throwing out attacks. Especially when you got characters like your clerics, like Silk and Jenny, who fucking, their default move, Nosferatu, which apparently turned into a holy move, even though originally I thought it was like a dark move. I thought it was like a dark mage ability. I didn't realize, because when I saw Nosferatu, I've only seen Nosferatu in reference to like characters like Henry and Tharja. So when I see it with these characters, I'm like, all right, I guess it's a holy thing now. The shit like has a default hit rate of 60%. So like every time you throw it out, it's a goddamn gamble, which is aggravating. It's like the healers already. I'm like, cool. At least the healers have a default attack, but the default attack is ass. Like, the default attack is just like, I might hit, I will hit. And I think part of that is because it does have the added effect of taking, it's like Leech Seed for Pokemon, or Mega Drain, where it takes your opponent's HP. It's just kind of fucking annoying that my healer has this one technique that, like, half of the time misses, and with fucking Echo's janky-ass hit rate, you're gonna be missing half the time. It fucking sucks. The characters have been entertaining so far. As I said, I'm in chapter 4. I've been doing a lot of, I would say grinding, but really it's just been me going to promote units, which is kind of where the map structure means more. Like, it's weird. This game is kind of interesting because I feel like it's the more strategic of the 3DS titles, where I actually have to look at stats every time I choose it. I think about facing an enemy, which is kind of, that's the point. That's the appeal of Fire Emblem. It's not only the characters and the story, but also the fact that it's a strategy. It's a tactical strategy game where you're constantly looking at your units, comparing numbers, and being like, is it worth it to do this attack? Is it worth it to take this risk? And it's even more strenuous and gives you more anxiety because of the hit rate situation, where you don't even know if you're guaranteed to make those hits. So like I've had fucking, like, recently, earlier today I was playing the game. I'm using Matilda. Matilda had an 80% crit rate, had an 80% hit rate, and was going to double the enemy. And so I played the shit out. Oh, I only hit once. Ah! It sucks. It sucks. I hate it when it happens, but it's one of those things. And that shit can really fuck you over. And also, speaking of hit rates, because your units are more likely to die in this game because of the insanity with the hit rates, let's talk about the turn back time mechanic, which I'm so glad is in the game, because with fucking hit rates like this, if I had to fucking reset the game every time the game fucked me over when it came to hit rates, I would have lost my goddamn mind already. The turn back time mechanic, which I forget, I think it's called like Milla's turn wheel, I believe is what it's called, is a cool mechanic. It's not overly abusable, and there's actually a little bit of some predestination involved with it. To give you an example, because this happened to me, I was in a fight, right? I think it was my second fight with Berkut, right? And I unfortunately was led into a situation where Matilda got killed, right? And you thinking, okay, well, I would think the RNG resets was going to happen every time you turn back time. Well, that's not a default. To give you an example, because what fucked me over with this particular turn with Matilda is that Matilda, I planned out, would be able to take all hits, that she was going to get hit. And then the fucking dude who had a 4% crit chance crit me, and I died. And I'm like, well, fuck it. I'll just roll back to the beginning of the enemy's turn, and, oh, look, it should play out differently. No. The rule I've at least from my playing, I've surmised that unless you roll back to the beginning of your turn, whatever was going to happen will still happen. Meaning, if I roll back to the beginning of the enemy's turn, during that turn in which the enemy critted Matilda, he will always get a crit when he shows up now, unless you roll it back to the beginning of your turn, or it has to be in the middle of your turn. It seems like. You have to innately change certain aspects about how you move certain characters. So I can't just roll it back to the beginning of the enemy's turn and then hit A. Because if I do that, he will still get the crit. The crit doesn't go away. And it's actually how I had to soft reset my game, because I was doing one of the dungeons in Al's group, and Tobin I have at the front of my squad because he's an archer, and he has an insane amount of he's an archer, well, sniper technically now, on my crew. And we run into these, I forget what they're called. I think their class is terrors, but I forget what they're actually called. It's not Myers, it's the zombie-liking enemies that are like physical attackers but have like no magical defense. Anyways, there's like a golden variety of them that shows up in this dungeon. You might know the dungeon I'm referring to. It's a dungeon that's super deep, and like you get to the Milla's statue pretty early, but there's like a whole bunch of more dungeon for you to explore. And I got ambushed, meaning the enemy turn is the first turn, meaning I don't get a turn, right? Well, because I didn't get a turn, and because in the dungeons, usually, if that happens, the enemy can dead on attack you from jump, because of how fucking close they are. Fucking Tobin got killed on that first turn. Well, you can't roll back time and hope the enemy turn plays differently from what I told you with Matilda's example. Meaning, that means I was gonna lose. I'm losing Tobin regardless of what happens at this point. Because even if I roll back to the beginning of the enemy's turn, shit doesn't reset. It keeps the same what it was gonna do. There might be some slight difference in the way they approach it, but for the most part, if he crits you, you're still getting crit. And if he kills one of your units, he's still gonna kill one of your units, even if you roll back time to the beginning of the enemy's turn, which fucking sucks. The one thing I will say I really like is the whole the fact that I have to think about what I'm doing with the map. Like the whole having two different units, you would think is more of a gimmick because each of their stories barely intertwine. They intertwine early on, and I don't know about later on in the game. But it's not like you would think, okay, well, their actions aren't actively affecting what I'm doing until you realize that because enemies can spawn up on the map at any time and they can also move around the map, that say, like for example, Berkut's thing, right? Berkut's thing, the second time I fought Berkut, there was a mage also next to him on his icon on the damn map. Well, if you go ahead and attack him straight off from there, guess what? You're not only fighting Berkut, you're also fighting the stupid ass mage, the mages that were next to you. Which, by the way, mages are like some of the most dangerous fucking characters in this game. It is aggravating, dude. Which goes into my whole thing about how I think Celica's group is more mage focused, and I think Alm's group is more fighter focused. Hence why I have generals on Alm's side. I have more mages on Celica's side. So I have to like strategically be like, all right, well, Celica's over here. I need to make Celica move to trigger one of these enemies to move out of the way so I'm not double fighting at the same time for no goddamn reason. What you might want to do, because I wouldn't call Fire Emblem Echoes a cakewalk. It is definitely harder. Granted, part of that's just due to the bullshit that is the hit system. But it is still relatively challenging. And I like that this game makes me think. As far as the characters are concerned, I probably would say I just got Delthea, so that might give you more of an idea of where I'm at in the game. I just recently got Delthea. I would say my favorite character, so Matilda is just great purely on like fight. I'm kind of sad that her support conversations with Clive is like all lovey-dovey bullshit. Also, question, just because I'm curious, is there any reason to do support conversations other than learning about the characters? Because at least with like Fates and Awakening, if you did support conversations, it will work towards like your defense gauge and Fates, or just building up like relation. Like there was some benefit to doing that in game. Like they could dodge easier, or they'd be more likely to crit and shit. In Echoes, I don't really notice anything different about my units when I max out their supports. And obviously because this game is very picky about that in the first place. But you get my fucking point. Is there really, because I haven't really looked up anything about this game for the most part. The only thing I looked up is I found out how doubling works in Echoes, which is that whoever is faster automatically doubles. Which is both great and kind of terrifying. Because that means even if he's a point higher than you, he's going to double you. And if he's already like doing 10 damage with each attack, it could essentially kill some of your units. It's insane. But the point I was trying to make before that anyway was just the whole, I'm just curious, can anyone tell me if there's any value in doing supports? Like, because I'm especially considering some of them are like romance related, although some of them don't really. And then the fact that some of them are restricted for certain characters. But my favorites so far, I like May, I like Bowie, I like Celica, I like I like Clive, I like Lucas. For some reason, Lucas clicks with me because he doesn't have the ability to have any apathy towards people, but he's like still cool-headed and calm and not a fucking douchebag. I don't know what it is. I like Matilda. Faye is kind of weird, and it's funny considering Faye is the original character. I think Berkut is too, but I'm not totally sure. I'm still curious about Reyna because I keep seeing Reyna with Berkut. Those characters don't even look like they correlate well. I'm curious what's going on with that. What's the relationship? The story's been okay so far. I haven't really gotten into the major stuff. What is that mage? That mage I just got with Celica. It's apparently the point in the game in which you had two choices in terms of who you were going to fight. It was like a guy and it was a girl, and the girl was a mage, and I think the guy was like kind of like Atlas. I think he was either a villager or like a mercenary or something. And if you fought, whichever one you fought is the one you couldn't get. Whereas, so I fought the guy, and then I got the girl sorceress, who apparently has support conversations with Jenny. Why is that? I have no fucking idea. I kind of got it because I wanted another mage. Also, Jesse kind of reminds me of Arthur, except just not as like anime-esque about everything. Saber's kind of grown on me a lot too. I like most of the cast. I'll be honest with you. There's not really any characters I inherently dislike. I have some characters I'm iffy about, which is probably more in the vein of like I think Faye's like the one I'm the most iffy about. Although she's kind of come around now that I've done all of her in Silk's support conversations. I haven't done all of her in Elms because it required... Essentially, you still have to have the characters by each other. Although the range for that seems to be pretty generous. Claire is probably like... Claire and May are like one of my favorites. Like, dead ass. Claire hits that also because she's voiced by, I believe it's Brittany Kurbowski. I think that's who voices Claire, which automatically is win because I love her fucking voice. And then May is fucking adorable. Fucking love both of those two. It's weird. I'm really not into like the snobby rich girls, but I don't know what it is. She does something for me. The villagers are fine. Tobin, Gray, Cliff, perfectly fine. Probably my favorite out of those three is probably Gray going near Tobin. Cliff, I think relates to me most because of his personality, but you know. Oh yeah, I forgot Walbart, Leon, Kamui, all cool. I'm trying to think of anything else. The weapon triangle being gone does shake it up a lot for me because now I'm okay with characters like Claire approaching a fucking archer and not being scared half to death. Now, granted, you also now have to watch secondary abilities, which I actually genuinely like. I like the whole secondary abilities. I like that there aren't degradable weapons. I know people had issues with that with Fates. I think it just wasn't as implemented as well in Fates. But I still like the idea of having non-breakable weapons. Because, like, if you're going to do that, then, like, at that point, you don't need to have items in general. The item system in this game is actually probably the most interesting, too. Because every item seems to have an effect and a counter effect. Meaning, there is no one best item in the game. It's just, what risks are you willing to take? The better the shield, the heavier it is, which means... you're going to drop down in speed, so you don't really want to give a good shield to speedy characters, which are probably in the form of some characters like Clive or archers. The problem there is that you also need to worry about defense and special defense. It's not special defense, resistance. That's Pokemon in me. That's the Pokemon fan in me. Excuse it. It's there's a lot more of the numbers and looking at how things are playing out. Like, I feel more like a tactician here, which makes the fights more interesting. And so I get a kick out of it. So if this is, and people have been kind of saying that this is more like old school Fire Emblem, perfectly cool with me. Not super interested in the map terrain because the map terrain is pretty fucking basic. Like, the one thing I think people liked about Fates is that Fates had a lot of interesting map designs. Whereas, like, fucking this, like, the most interesting map that comes off of the top of my head is the one I just recently played with Celica, where you're in the swamp. You start off in this one patch of land, and you got these fucking, I think they're what they're called, Cantors, who can summon these monsters. You got, like, a couple of them on the other side. Where's the thing? There's, like, this giant poisonous swamp that does, like, 5 damage if you're in it for a whole turn. And it's like, the whole gimmick of the stage is, you're going to make me cross it. I got to cross it, and I got to keep everybody alive while crossing it. Which is possible. It's just kind of a bitch. Because you're pretty much sitting ducks because, oh, look at the enemies the Cantor is summoning. Besides the damn mages who have a nasty fucking attack range, you also got the flying enemies, I forget what they're called, that can attack me that have a ridiculous range and aren't affected because, oh, look, they're fucking flying enemies over the stupid thing. Which is why I would suggest that you level up Jenny and Silk as quick as you can. Because those two can create illusionary soldiers for you, and those two are GOAT purely for that reason, because Jenny was GOAT in that fight. Fucking love Jenny. I haven't really gotten any support conversations with her yet, so I haven't really learned too much about her. I don't know if she's another one of those characters who are created. And I also find it interesting in a lot of characters in this game, you can choose whether or not to recruit. Like, the game asks you to recruit whether you want to recruit most of these enemies. Allies. Which is interesting in its own right. But it's been about 20 minutes. I've rambled on for enough. The game is fun. I like the game. The hit-miss rate is fucking terrifying at times, but it's still enjoyable. I would say pick it up. I think it's time for me to go. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game. Play to win. And I will catch you guys later. Go buy Fire Emblem Echoes. It's pretty fun. I'm enjoying it. I think it's I think if you play only Fates and Awakening, it's harder, but it is somewhat more forgiving. And by the way, I don't care if it's a plot inconvenience or not. The turning the time back on these fucking, Miller's turn wheel as a mechanic, that needs to stay. Children, that can go. But you need to keep the motherfucking turn wheel, damn it. I'm hoping Fire Emblem for Switch kind of fuses the best elements of this game and like games like Awakening and Fates. But I will say that's the biggest problem with this game is that the map design is pretty weak. Anywho, this has been the Insane Game Freak. I'll catch you guys later. Peace. Oh.